She was locked in a hospital room. She could not leave. And while she sat there, her name was being written into private emails by a man connected to Jeffrey Epstein. That was 2026. But this story did not start in 2026. It started when she was 10 years old, and the machine that built her never, not once, let her go.
Comes out in a very provocative gown with high heels, and all of a sudden that little girl knocks you right off your ass.
And now, in 2026, after a DUI arrest, after a restraining order against a stalker who hunted her for over a decade, after her name surfaced in the Epstein files, the question that nobody in mainstream media is asking out loud is this.
I'm absolutely, as a father, terrified that one day I might wake up and my sons are going to have to deal with the unimaginable.
Who is still after Britney Spears? And why has every system that was supposed to protect her done the exact opposite? But here is what nobody is connecting. The DUI, the Epstein emails, the conservatorship, the people who profited from her breakdown, they are not separate stories. They are the same story, and it has been running since she was a child. Let's start with what actually happened on the night of March 5th, 2026, because the way this story was covered tells you almost everything you need to know about the machine that is still operating around her. California Highway Patrol spots a 2026 BMW convertible weaving on the road in Ventura County. It is 9:30 at night.
Booking information obtained by CNN shows that the pop star was stopped by the California Highway Patrol around 9:30 p.m.
They pull her over, field sobriety tests, she fails. They call in a drug recognition expert. Blood is drawn at a local hospital. The car is impounded. She is arrested on suspicion of DUI, suspected combination of alcohol and drugs, booked, processed, and released the morning of March 5th. Court date set for May 4th, 2026, Ventura County Superior Court. Now, here is the detail that almost every outlet buried in paragraph 9, if they mentioned it at all. This arrest happened just days after Britney Spears was granted a restraining order against a stalker who had been targeting her since 2013. 13 years, the same number of years she spent under the conservatorship. A man had been hunting this woman since before her conservatorship even ended, and the week she finally got legal protection against him, her DUI became the headline. Think about what it does to a person to live under that kind of pressure. A decade plus of being stalked, a decade plus of being controlled. And then the first time you slipped, the helicopters are already in the air. Doctors who have never treated her, going on camera to discuss a bipolar disorder diagnosis that has never been publicly confirmed. Let that land for a second. If a random doctor went on CNN to speculate about your mental health diagnoses, you would have legal recourse. When it is Britney Spears, it is just Tuesday. And who was leading that media charge? Who was first, loudest, most persistent? TMZ. We are going to come back to TMZ because that name connects somewhere you are not going to expect. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Her representative released a statement. CNN covered it on March 6th. Clinical, controlled. Reads like a legal document, not like a statement from someone who loves her. We will come back to that too. Before we get into the Epstein files, before we get into the names and the money and the documents, I need you to understand something foundational, because without this layer, none of what comes after makes complete sense. Britney Spears did not enter the entertainment industry as a teenager. She entered it as a child, a 10-year-old girl from Kentwood, Louisiana, who wanted to sing, who wanted to perform, who had been taught by every adult around her that applause was love and that performing was purpose. And the first moment she stepped onto a national stage, the adults in that room, on camera, with a studio audience watching, said this.
There's nothing more interesting to adult men than the development of an adolescent female. We are hardwired to recognize that.
That was not whispered in a back room. That was not a private conversation. That aired on national television, with cameras, with a studio audience, with a host, and nobody flinched.
A lot of sexual energy that is oozing out of that little girl. She can't possibly manage that kind of sexuality. So as she grows up, you're going to see this split between Britney, sexual Britney, and then there's Britney.
Read that back slowly. They predicted her psychological fracture in the same breath that they were describing a child's body as a commodity. They knew what the exploitation of a 10-year-old girl would eventually do to that girl. They said it out loud, and they kept filming anyway. That is not a different era with different norms. That is a system that understood exactly what it was building and chose to build it regardless, because the profit was worth more than the person inside it. She never had a single moment of genuine autonomy. Think about the architecture of her life. She goes from her parents controlling her, to managers controlling her, to producers controlling her, to a global fame machine controlling her image, her body, her public persona. And then the second that machine Epstein starts to crack, the second she stops being perfectly compliant and perfectly profitable, they do not offer her compassion. They offer her a conservatorship. In February 2008, after what was publicly described as a breakdown, the hospitalization, the shaved head, the images that the whole world saw and called entertainment, her father, Jaime Spears, petitioned a California court and was granted legal control over her entire life. Her money, her medical decisions, her career, her daily schedule, her relationships, everything. An adult woman handed over legally, and she had no say. That conservatorship ran from February 2008 to November 2021, 13 years. And in her memoir, The Woman in Me, released in October 2023, she described what it actually felt like from the inside. Lithium, without her full and informed consent, the same drug, she noted, that drove her grandmother to suicide. We are going to talk about what that actually means for her brain and her body, because that piece of this story is the one that almost nobody is covering correctly. But first, the files. In February 2026, a TikTok went viral, claiming Britney Spears was mentioned 115 times in the Epstein documents. Twitter ran with it. People were saying she was a victim of neurological experiments. Some were saying she was cloned. I am not joking. Cloned. And look, I get the impulse. When you have watched someone be systematically exploited for 2 decades, and then her name shows up in those files, the instinct is to connect every possible dot. But we are not going to do that here, because the truth that is actually documented in those files is alarming enough without any embellishment. IB Times UK fact-checked the 115 mentions claim in March 2026. Factually.co did the same in February. Both came back with the same finding. No publicly available evidence backs up those specific viral claims. Legal experts who went through the released files found no verified criminal connection tying her to Epstein as a participant. That is important context, and I am giving it to you straight. But here is what those fact-checkers did not debunk. Here is what is sitting in those documents. Verified, documented, real. In the Epstein files, there are emails between In those emails, Tramo is discussing securing funding for what the documents themselves describe as, and this is a direct description from the files, a project relating to Britney Spears. Her child custody situation comes up in the same conversation. There is also a reference to a neonatal ICU project connected to her name. Nobody has been able to fully explain what that means in the context of a woman who had already given birth to both of her children. Now, here is the part that makes all of this significantly more uncomfortable. While those emails were being written, while a man connected to Jeffrey Epstein was corresponding about a project involving Britney's name and her children, Britney Spears was being held at the UCLA Resnick Psychiatric Hospital, the same university system where Mark Tramo worked. She was not there voluntarily. Multiple sources confirm she was kept there against her will. A man in Epstein's email chain, discussing a project involving her name and her children, while she sat locked in a room at his university and could not leave. That is not a conspiracy theory. That is not a fan forum. That is what is sitting in the publicly available documents. Now, TMZ Epstein reportedly said on record that Harvey Levin, the CEO of TMZ, was, and this is paraphrased from the files, a good friend of mine. Fast forward to March 2026. Who is leading the media charge on Britney's DUI story? TMZ. Who is getting the family members and exes to do interviews pushing the narrative that she is out of control? TMZ. Who is the loudest voice right now telling the world that Britney Spears cannot be trusted to manage her own life? Connect those dots yourself. Now here is where it gets significantly messier, and this is the section that the mainstream coverage of Britney's DUI almost entirely ignores. Because to understand who might benefit from Britney being pushed back toward a conservatorship, you have to follow the money. And the money leads somewhere very specific. 2 names kept surfacing when journalists and court document researchers started digging into how the original conservatorship was built in the first place. The first is Lou Taylor, Hollywood management executive, runs a firm called TriStar. Taylor is widely reported to have played a key architectural role in constructing the conservatorship around Britney. And Lou Taylor's client list is where this story expands from a personal tragedy into something that looks a lot more like a network. Court documents from 2020 and 2021 listed Lou Taylor as the legal agent for multiple Kardashian-Jenner businesses: Kim's KKW Fragrance, Kylie's King Kylie LLC, Chris's Family Foundation, Kendall's 818 Tequila, Travis Scott's Cactus Jack, all of it funneling through the same firm, the same woman allegedly tied to the architecture of Britney's conservatorship. And then Diddy. Lou Taylor's firm also reportedly represented represented him. Now, in the recent batch of Epstein files, the ones that triggered all of the viral content in early 2026, the Kardashians were mentioned, not positively. A victim submitted a complaint to federal authorities in the Ghislaine Maxwell case. In that complaint, she accused the Kardashian sisters of maintaining a close friendship with Maxwell and Epstein. She claimed they collaborated with Maxwell to exploit her identity for financial gain, including matters tied to children and possible surrogacy arrangements. She also accused them of financial fraud. Who has covered the financial architecture around multiple of these figures, put the total amount allegedly extracted from Britney at around $600 million, not the $200 million figure that typically gets quoted. And here's the part that should make everyone stop completely. When the Free Britney movement was at its peak in 2021, when the Kardashians were posting support for Britney, talking about her publicly, performing solidarity, Lou Taylor, the woman at the center of the conservatorship architecture, was a guest at Kris Jenner's birthday party.
Britney was transformed, pouring on a sexy southern charm the judges had never seen in a package so small.
Make that make sense. There is also this. Kris Jenner reportedly set up an organization called California Community Church. Every member, including her daughters, was required to pay $1,000 a month to belong, plus 10% of their earnings on top of that. But everyone around you is smiling. The lights are bright, the applause is loud, and every adult in your life has told you that this is success. This is what you were born to do. So you perform. You grow up inside that machine. Teenager, global superstar, product, problem. The moment your value dips, the moment you stop being perfectly compliant, the moment the cracks start showing. And the system does not offer you compassion. It offers you a conservatorship. Now, let's talk about what 13 years of heavy lithium use actually does to a person's brain. Because this is documented medical fact, and it is not being discussed anywhere near enough. Britney described in her memoir being placed on lithium without her full and informed consent. Heavy doses, consistent, for over a decade. Sustained high-dose lithium use over a long period of time can cause lasting neurological damage. It affects memory, it affects coordination, it affects emotional regulation, it affects cognitive function. The damage can be permanent. So when the tabloids run the dancing videos, when people laugh at the captions that make her fans panic, when doctors who have never met her go on television to diagnose her, I need every single one of those people to sit with this. She was medicated against her will for over a decade by the same conservatorship that was allegedly architected by a woman who shared a client list with Jeffrey Epstein's documented associates. They controlled what she put into her own body for 13 years. They would have had them right where they wanted them. That is the sentence. That is the whole story in one line. In October 2025, Kevin Federline, Britney's ex-husband, the father of her two sons, published a memoir called You Thought You Knew. And in it, he wrote something that at the time felt like drama. Now it does not feel like drama at all.
Really worried. I'm absolutely, as a father, terrified that one day I might wake up and my sons are going to have to deal with the unimaginable. I kind of have to sound the alarm that I truly feel that somehow, some way, I just wish that their mom would get help.
5 months later, March 2026, DUI arrest. His prediction came true. Now look, Kevin Federline is not exactly fan favorite #1 in the Britney conversation. I understand that, but being right does not care about your reputation. And who would be running to the courts with documentation of erratic behavior? The same exes who are already running to CNN, the same outlets already framing her as out of control, the same network that has spent 20 years profiting from her compliance.
Britney Spears is focusing on her health. On April 12th, a rep for the singer confirms to E! News that she has voluntarily checked herself into a treatment facility.
By April 12th, 2026, just over a month after the DUI, a rep for Britney confirmed to E! News that she had voluntarily checked herself into a treatment facility. Good. That is genuinely good news. But here's the part the headlines almost completely glossed over. She refused to go for weeks. A close friend told News Nation in March 2026, weeks before she finally agreed to go in. She has very big trust issues. She will not sign anything anymore because of the last conservatorship. Of course, she will not. Think about what her life has actually looked like. Every time she trusted a system, the system took something from her. Her body was turned into a commodity at 10. Her freedom was stripped at 26. Her children, her money, her medical decisions handed to someone else. She was medicated without consent. She was kept in a hospital against her will. And her name somehow ended up in the private emails of the most notorious predator in modern American history. And now someone is asking her to voluntarily sign herself into a facility. That is not erratic behavior. That is a woman whose entire life has taught her that signing things is how you lose yourself. herself. What changed her mind? According to her rep, after the arrest, she realized she could lose everything. Her loved ones are working on a plan for her long-term well-being. She went in, and I genuinely hope that the people around her this time actually mean it. But here's what I need you to hold on to as we close this out. The question of whether the people around Britney Spears right now are trustworthy. That is not a rhetorical question. It is the most important question in this entire story. Britney Spears entered a machine at 10 years old, a machine that identified her value, commodified her body, profited from her performance, and when she started to break under the weight of what they had built her into, tightened the leash instead of offering her a way out. From the Star Search stage to the UCLA psychiatric ward to her name appearing in the private correspondence of Jeffrey Epstein. The thread never broke. The machine never released her. The DUI in March 2026 is not the story. The DUI is what the machine wants you to look at. The story is the network that built her, profited from her breakdown, kept its hand in her life through a documented web of management firms and financial connections and media companies tied to a man named Jeffrey Epstein, and is now, in 2026, perfectly positioned to do it all again if she does not stay standing. She got herself into treatment. That is real. That matters. The question now is whether this time, for the first time in her life, the people in that room with her actually want her free. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you think the people around Britney right now have her best interests? And if you want us to go all the way into the Lou Taylor and Kardashian money trail as its own full deep dive episode, type money trail in the comments and we will build that out completely. Stay locked in. We will see you in the next one.